Hey guys, tonight we ease ourselves back into the warm, sometimes strange, cradle of history. Tonight we journey to a world of floating cities and potent blossoms. A world where the cure for a common affliction was cultivated on water. Tonight we explore how Aztec flower gardens helped cure insomnia. You are already beginning to feel the gentle drift of this moment, perhaps sinking deeper into your pillow, letting the edges of the room blur just a little bit. You are leaving behind the hard fluorescent glare of the modern world. Instead, you step onto a damp causeway, an earthen bridge cutting across a vast, shimmering lake in the Valley of Mexico. Imagine the year is somewhere around 1480. The air is warm, thick with the scent of damp earth, lake water, and thousands upon thousands of blooming flowers. This is the great city of Tenochtitlan, the heart of the powerful Aztec Empire. You stand here, and you are surrounded not by concrete and steel, but by shimmering water, colossal pyramids that seem to touch the sky, and intricate networks of canals. The city is a masterpiece of engineering and willpower, built by people who knew how to shape the very earth beneath their feet. Look around, and you realize that this city, for all its power and magnificence, is also profoundly, deeply busy. It is a place that barely sleeps. You see canoes long and smooth, gliding silently along the canals, carrying goods from the mainland, maize, cloth, shimmering obsidian. The sounds of industry are here, soft but constant. The rhythmic chipping of stone carvers, the gentle slosh of water against wood, the distant, muffled sound of a ceremonial drum. Even now, as the late afternoon sun casts long shadows, you feel the hum of activity, the almost frenetic energy that pulses through the city's veins. This energy, while impressive, often came with a heavy cost, a widespread, constant, low-grade fatigue, a kind of empire-wide inability to truly, deeply rest. Sleeplessness was not a modern invention born of blue screens and endless notifications. It has always been a human affliction. And the Aztecs had it too. You probably believe that ancient cultures had a simple, perfect harmony with nature and slept the moment the sun went down. The reality is, they had complex economies, political intrigues, and stressful harvests that kept minds racing just like ours do today. The great ruler, the Tlatoani, faced pressure that would make a modern CEO wilt. The soldiers had the terrifying weight of endless conflict. The farmers worried about the unpredictable rains. This city, this heart of a mighty empire, was a brilliant, loud, and often very tired place. Before you get too comfortable, and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive, and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. If you are listening tonight, let me know where you are tuning in from, and what time it is for you down below. It is nice to feel connected across the miles as we all prepare to rest. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen, and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. Your feet carry you across the causeway, and you realize something fundamental about this world. Tenochtitlan is built on a lake, Lake Texcoco, but it is not just floating on the water, it is built from the water. Your eyes land upon the most remarkable feature of the landscape, the Chinampas, the famous floating gardens. They are not actually floating in the sense of boats drifting away, but they are rectangular islands, meticulously constructed by layering mud and decaying vegetation from the lake bottom, framed and anchored by strong willow trees. They are the market gardens of the capital, and they produce up to 7 harvests a year, keeping the enormous population fed. As you walk past these green rectangles, you see that they are not only for food. Many Chinampas are dedicated entirely to the cultivation of flowers, a fact that might seem extravagant in a place where land is so precious. These are the Xochimilco flower gardens, essential to Aztec culture. The love of flowers, Xochitl, was deep and philosophical. Flowers represented poetry, truth, beauty, and even the fleeting nature of life itself. But their use was far more practical than just decoration. You stop by a narrow channel where a small canoe rests, laden with deep crimson and bright yellow blossoms. The fragrance here is intoxicating, but not heavy. It is clean, green, and slightly sweet, a scent that already begins to lower your internal temperature. You reach out, letting your fingertips brush against the velvety petals of a marigold, the Sempa's chill. You are instantly connecting with the textures of this ancient world, the roughness of the soil contrasting with the soft life it supports. This dedication to flowers is a mainstream historical fact. The Aztecs utilized flowers extensively in rituals, clothing, and medicine. Yet, there is a fringe tidbit whispered among the keepers of the royal gardens. Certain plots, often located in the quieter, more protected sections of the great parks, were not for the common people, nor for public ceremony. These were specialized horticultural zones dedicated purely to the pursuit of tranquility, grown for a select, often desperately exhausted, elite. These were the sleep clinics of Mesoamerica, cultivated rectangles of calm in a loud, demanding empire. You hear the soft, almost therapeutic sound of water trickling between the rows of plants. The Chinampas are naturally irrigated by the capillary action of the lake water filtering up through the mud. It is a self-sustaining system, a miniature ecosystem built for rest and abundance. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of soft gold and dusky rose. You notice a gardener, perhaps an agronomist in modern terms, tending to a specific patch. He moves with a slow, deliberate pace, handling the fragile stems as if they were made of spun glass. He is checking the development of several particular species, including a variety of morning glory, which, in its mature form, holds compounds that can alter consciousness. The Aztecs were master chemists of the garden, knowing precisely which parts of a plant, the leaf, the root, the petal, the seed, to use for specific effects. They understood the pharmacology of nature centuries before Europeans began their own scientific inquiries. You continue your walk, feeling the day's lingering heat slowly dissipate into the cool, moist air rising from the canals. The light now is gentle, kind, filtering through the tall, feathery branches of the cypress trees, the ahuwheat. The shadows grow long and blue, wrapping the city in a comforting, darkening blanket. It is easy to imagine how, in this environment, with the constant, steady sounds of water and the overwhelming presence of natural fragrance, the anxiety of a stressful day could be eased away. The air here is clean, scrubbed by the millions of green leaves. You can almost feel the difference in your own lungs, a deeper, slower breath coming naturally. This sensory experience was intentional. The Aztec elite knew that true rest was not just a physical state, but a psychological one, requiring an environment free from the visual clutter and loud demands of the central city. The gardens served as a sensory balm. Historians still argue whether the Aztec motivation for these massive flower gardens was primarily spiritual, aesthetic, or medicinal. Was the beauty of a garden seen as a gift to the gods, a necessary display of imperial wealth, or a practical form of preventative health care? The truth, you realize as you breathe in the calming scent, is probably all three. The spiritual reverence for Xochitl, the flower, was inextricably linked to the physical and mental well-being of the person who experienced it. You look back at the shimmering lake, reflecting the fading light. The great causeways stretch out like sleeping serpents across the water. The sheer scale of the effort involved in maintaining this city and its gardens is astonishing. Think about your own garden, if you have one, or even a single houseplant. Now multiply that effort by the entire landmass of a massive city, all built on mud and water. It is a monumental dedication to life and beauty, and in the quiet of this evening, it feels like a monumental dedication to rest. The gardener you observed earlier now gathers his tools. He places the blossoms he collected into a finely woven basket. These specific blooms, selected not for their vibrant color, but for their subtle, soporific scent, are destined for a very important set of chambers. They are going to the palace of the Tlatoani, the great speaker, the man who carries the sleepless weight of an entire empire on his shoulders. This ruler, despite his power, was just as susceptible to the torment of a racing mind at night as anyone else. As the gardener glides his canoe away from the chinampa, the gentle wake washes against the muddy bank, creating a soft, shushing sound. It is a sound that lulls and reassures, a sound that says the world is moving, but slowly, safely. You watch the canoe disappear into the shadows of the canals, carrying its precious, fragrant cargo. That cargo is a hope for peace, a natural sedative, a promise of a few hours of deeply needed oblivion. The darkness is deepening now. The stars are beginning to pierce the purple velvet of the night sky, their light reflecting faintly on the still water. You feel the cool kiss of the evening air on your skin. You realize that you are standing in a living, breathing laboratory, a place where botanical knowledge was wielded like a gentle sword against the forces of stress and sleeplessness. The next step in this journey will take us deeper into the palace, past the grand, imposing architecture, and into the private, quiet rooms where the weight of the crown became too much to bear, and where these potent flowers were brought to work their quiet magic. The energy of the capital, so vibrant during the day, now begins to settle, a massive creature curling up for a brief, well-earned respite, even if that rest is hard-won. The silence grows, soft and pervasive. The air is sweeter now, filled only with the perfume of the carefully cultivated blossoms. It is time to follow the scent, time to understand the burden of the ruler who relied on the power of these tranquil flowers. You feel a lovely sense of sinking down, of letting go, as you anticipate the deep calm waiting just ahead in the shadows of the royal compound. Your breathing matches the slow, gentle rhythm of the remaining ripples in the canal. You follow the same narrow channel that the gardener's canoe traversed, moving away from the sprawling, productive chinampas and toward the central area of Tenochtitlan. The vastness of the city begins to contract, the open water giving way to imposing stone structures. You glide closer to the sacred precinct, the ceremonial heart, and then turn into the private district, where the ruling family and their court resided. The sounds shift again, becoming muffled by thick stone walls and the deep, silent pools within the inner courtyards. Gone is the gentle slosh of the lake. Here, the only water sound is the controlled, soothing flow of fountains and carefully managed streams, engineered to produce a quiet, persistent whisper. The weight of the empire, which had been a distant thrum of activity, now feels palpably close. This weight was a political reality, and it was the primary cause of the widespread fatigue you are here to explore. The Aztec Empire was a sprawling, decentralized structure, held together by alliances, threats, and a relentless system of tribute. Every single day, the Tlatoani, the main ruler, the one who spoke for the empire, had to manage tribute quotas from hundreds of subordinate city-states. Think of that level of administrative stress, not just managing his own city, but ensuring copper, jaguar pelts, maize, and countless other goods flowed reliably from places sometimes hundreds of miles away. It is a logistical nightmare, and a heavy cloak of responsibility that sits on the shoulders of one man, keeping his mind sharp and perpetually running. You recognize the deep, collective exhaustion of the ruling class. They were the ones who had to remain vigilant, constantly anticipating revolts, bad harvests, or strategic threats. If you think you're late, night email checking is stressful. Imagine deciding whether to send an army to quell an uprising in the dead of night. Sleep became a luxury, and perhaps even a strategic weakness, if not managed properly. This anxiety led to a curious kind of cultural insomnia, and the palace became the epicenter of a quiet, desperate search for rest. It is a quirky or fringe tidbit of history that the palace grounds were not just for show or defense, but also contained specialized, isolated rooms, sometimes described in ancient texts as resting chambers, built to maximize quiet and minimize light infiltration. A sort of ancient blackout curtain system, years ahead of its time. These rooms were not opulent in the way of gold and jewels. Their luxury was in their absolute stillness. You move through an arched doorway and into a silent courtyard. The air here is noticeably warmer, trapped by the high walls, but it is also heavy with the rich, deep scent of night, blooming jasmine, a fragrance specifically chosen for its known tranquilizing effect. You realize that, within the palace grounds, the flower gardens, the Xochitla, took on a different, more functional character than the communal Chinampus. They became private pharmacological spaces. The focus narrows to the great ruler, who embodies the empire's insomnia. The Tlatoani was, by all accounts, a man of profound energy, but the sheer volume of his duties was overwhelming. He oversaw the legal system, commanded the military, directed foreign policy, and performed essential religious duties. A central pillar of mainstream historical fact is that the Aztec ruler's day began before dawn and often ended long after midnight, sustained by cocoa and the fierce necessity of his role. When he tried to sleep, his mind was a whirlwind of logistics, war plans, and ceremonial dates. A quiet joke comes to mind for the Tlatoani. A full 7 hours of sleep was probably the ancient equivalent of a fully paid off mortgage. It simply did not happen often. You pause by a shallow reflecting pool in the center of the courtyard. The water is perfectly still, mirroring the deep, star-studded sky. The sound is almost non-existent, demanding a hushed respect. Here, the challenge was not just to stop thinking, but to physically convince a body running on pure adrenaline to shut down. The court physicians and botanists, the tlamatinime, were tasked with this essential mission. The health and rest of the ruler were matters of national security. Historians still argue whether the Aztec system of royal health care prioritized spiritual or herbal remedies. Was the initial recourse a plea to the gods for peace, or a practical consultation with the herbalist? The reality likely involved a simultaneous approach, but the botanical solution was often the most reliable. Gods could be fickle, but a carefully prepared decoction of a known sedative plant was consistently effective. The tlamatinime, the wise men and philosophers of the court, were the ones who directed the cultivation of these sleep-inducing gardens. They possessed specialized knowledge, recorded on painted screen, folds about the properties of hundreds of different plants. They knew which flower's scent acted as a mild hypnotic, which root could calm the heart rate, and which leaf, when steeped, could reduce the muscular tension caused by stress. The ruler's insomnia was a physical manifestation of his power. It was the constant mental pressure, the ceaseless demand to be the supreme authority. Think of it, everything flowed to him, and everything flowed out from him. There was no middle management layer, quite like a modern bureaucracy. He was the end of the line for every major decision. This level of stress produced a tension in the body, a fight or flight response that refused to turn off when he lay down to rest. So, the solution had to be holistic, combining environmental control with botanical science. The gardeners, working under the direction of the tlamatinime, started to select and cultivate plants specifically for their scent and texture, not their color. For most Aztec gardens, color was paramount. Bright reds for blood and life, vibrant yellows for the sun. But in the royal Xochitla, scent became the single, most important criterion. A mild, sleepy irony hangs in the air, the ruler of the greatest, most powerful empire in Mesoamerica, a man who commanded hundreds of thousands of warriors and held the keys to infinite wealth, was completely dependent on a handful of humble, fragrant blossoms to simply close his eyes. It is a lovely reminder that even supreme power does not grant immunity from the basic, universal need for rest. The specialized gardens were often positioned next to the ruler's private quarters. This was a deliberate attempt to use the ambient air itself as a delivery system for the medicine. As the day's warmth faded, the scent of the night, blooming flowers would become more concentrated. The air, moving slowly through the garden and into the sleeping chamber, was literally medicated. You can feel the effect right now. A slight softening behind your eyes, a gradual relaxation of the muscles in your jaw. The simple, organic fragrance is powerful precisely because it is so natural. You continue your slow, quiet path, tracing the perimeter of these private gardens. They are meticulously ordered, low-walled rectangles filled with dark, rich soil. The plants are organized by function. You see patches dedicated to the toloch, or sacred thorn, apple, which was intensely monitored and used with extreme caution due to its powerful, potentially dangerous properties. Then you see expansive beds of quahayayahol, a plant prized for its profoundly calming, almost woodsy aroma, and the gentle Xochitla, the flower that smells of vanilla and warmth. The sheer botanical knowledge is astounding. They knew that many of these sedative compounds were fat-soluble and were most effective when ingested or inhaled, leading to the creation of both calming teas and fragrant environments. The next section will dive deeper into those specific remedies. But here, in the palace courtyard, you appreciate the logistics of it all. The maintenance of the empire's health, both physical and political, was built on the ability to cultivate and control nature, even down to the most subtle, soporific scent. The quiet descends fully now. The shadows are absolute, deep pools of cool air broken only by the faint light spilling from a distant torch. The palace, which seemed so busy an hour ago, is now a silent monument to the exhaustion of authority. The Tlatoani is preparing for his nightly struggle, preparing to combat the relentless, internal chatter of his mind. He is relying on the delicate, potent science of his tlamatinime and the silent labor of his gardeners. This reliance highlights a charming inconsistency for a civilization known for grand-scale, violent rituals. Their solutions for personal anxiety were often gentle and deeply botanical. The cure for the stress of ruling was not more power, but a carefully placed flower bed and a warm cup of herbal tea. It is a soothing thought, really, that the greatest power in their world yielded to the quiet power of a blooming plant. The night air, heavy with the perfume of thousands of deliberate blossoms, is like a soft, invisible blanket being tucked around the city, promising a brief, precious moment of peace. You feel the slow, steady hum of the empire's breathing, finally finding a rhythm, thanks to the hidden, essential work of the royal gardens. You are moving now, pulled by the potent fragrance, toward the actual preparation and consumption of these botanical tranquilizers. The air now becomes thick with a new layer of scent, not just the ambient perfume of the garden, but the concentrated aroma of heating liquids and dried herbs. You are being drawn into the quieter, operational heart of the palace, the area dedicated to the preparation of medicines and ritual meals. This is where the wisdom of the tlamatinime, the thinkers, the healers, the keepers of knowledge, is translated from theory into practice. They are the gentle pharmacists of the empire, and their craft relies entirely on the precise manipulation of the plant life grown just outside the palace walls. The focus here is entirely on the delivery system of the calms, sacred flowers transformed into tranquilizing teas and decoctions. These are the active agents in the fight against the ruler's insomnia. You observe a small, specialized kitchen area lit by the flickering, warm glow of a clay lamp. The sound of boiling water is a low, continuous burble, a sound that is inherently relaxing, suggesting warmth and comfort in the cool night air. You see several individuals working in absolute silence, handling the botanicals with the precision of scientists. These workers are part of the medical retinue, overseen by the head tlamatinime. On a mat, spread out to dry and cure, are the essential ingredients. There is a pile of deep purple flowers, the patawa, known for their slightly bitter taste and profoundly relaxing properties. Next to them are the dried leaves of the coaxoxoaqui, or blue snake herb, which possesses a mild sedative effect, often compared to the feeling of a warm, heavy blanket settling over the shoulders. This is the central mainstream historical fact of Aztec medicine. They possessed a vast, systematized pharmacopoeia, detailing hundreds of plant-based remedies for everything from wounds to emotional distress. This botanical knowledge was not random folk medicine. It was a highly respected, institutionalized form of science. Yet, the quirky or fringe tidbit is that the specific recipes used for the royal sleep regimen were considered state secrets, more closely guarded than the location of a gold mine. The ability to guarantee the ruler's rest was a matter of imperial stability, and the exact combination of herbs and flowers was known only to the most trusted healers. You see a healer carefully grinding dried petals and leaves with a smooth pestle and mortar. The malkajit. The friction releases a burst of potent, earthy, and faintly sweet aroma into the room. This mixture, once processed, will be steeped in hot water, sometimes blended with a small amount of honey or a mild, non-stimulating cocoa derivative to improve palatability, though the primary goal is efficacy. The tlamatinime understood the complex chemistry of these plants. They knew that many of the most powerful flowers, such as certain varieties of water lily or the morning glory, derivative you saw earlier, had to be prepared in specific ways to isolate the beneficial compounds while neutralizing any potentially harmful side effects. They are not merely brewing a nice cup of tea. They are extracting precise, natural chemicals. Think about the modern ritual of drinking chamomile before bed. This Aztec ritual is that, but elevated to an imperial science, with a much wider and more potent range of natural ingredients. A gentle joke surfaces here. If only the Tlatoani had access to a fast-acting modern antacid after a stressful state dinner, maybe his sleep would have been easier, but instead, he had to rely on a meticulously prepared, slow, brewed botanical cocktail. You watch as a warm liquid, now a rich dark amber color, is poured from a ceramic pot. A tiny plume of fragrant steam rises, carrying the calming molecules of the flowers. It is the very essence of the quiet garden brought indoors, condensed and made ready for ingestion. This liquid is the culmination of weeks of careful cultivation and hours of silent preparation. The debate among scholars today is a fascinating one. Historians still argue whether the effectiveness of these specific botanical sleep remedies was purely chemical or largely psychosomatic. Did the powerful ritual, the quiet room, the fragrant garden, the silent preparation, the authoritative delivery by the trusted healer contribute more to the cure than the actual pharmacology of the flower itself? It is likely a beautiful blend of both. The potent compounds softened the physical body, while the ritual soothed the racing mind. The tlamatinime did not stop at simply preparing the tea. They also utilized the flowers in other formats. You see a finely woven cotton cloth being infused with the steam of another preparation. This cloth, infused with the essence of Xochitla, plumeria, and a mild cedar extract, is destined to be placed near the ruler's sleeping mat. It serves as an aromatic anchor for the mind, a constant, gentle source of sedative scent throughout the night. The use of scent is critical. They understood that the olfactory system has a direct, fast track to the limbic system of the brain, the part responsible for emotion and memory. A powerful, pleasant, and relaxing scent bypasses the ruler's conscious, stressed out mind and sends a direct signal of safety and calm. As you stand here, enveloped in the steam and the soft light, you can feel that principle working on you. The air is physically heavy, but mentally light. This is not a chaotic process. Everything is measured, everything is deliberate. The water temperature, the steeping time, the precise ratio of patahoa to coaxox aqui. These are details that were passed down through generations of healers. They treated their botanical ingredients with immense respect, recognizing the plants as sacred gifts. Tlatoani, or flesh of the gods, in some contexts. This sacred regard added to the potency of the medicine, lending it an air of spiritual certainty. The ruler's struggle with insomnia was often tied to the anxiety of making crucial decisions. A bad dream could signal a poor omen, and lack of sleep could dull his strategic mind. Therefore, the goal of these flower teas was not just to induce sleep, but to ensure quality sleep, a restorative deep dive that allowed the mind to process the day's immense stresses and wake refreshed, ready to govern. You watch as the final warm, amber liquid is poured into a clean, simple clay cup. It is a humble vessel for such a significant remedy. This cup is the last stage of the long journey from the muddy Chinampa to the palace. It holds the concentrated power of the sun, the soil, and the water, all marshaled to combat the high-stakes anxiety of imperial rule. The person carrying the cup must move with an absolute stillness and reverence, ensuring not a single drop is spilled, not a single sound is made. The quietness of the process is part of the medicine itself. The silence in the preparation room is profound, broken only by the rhythmic scrape of the grinder and the low burble of the heating water. This focus on sensory quietness highlights the Aztec understanding that external calm facilitates internal rest. They were creating an environmental buffer against the ceaseless demands of the city. The gentle scent of the tea continues to permeate the air. You feel a lovely sense of inevitability, the certainty that this warm, fragrant solution is doing its work even before it is consumed. The mind begins to slow, the internal monologue softening into a quiet whisper, much like the sound of the fountain in the courtyard. The transition to the next section is seamless, as the cup is carried out of the warm, fragrant preparation room and into the meticulously designed, cool stillness of the sleeping chambers, the royal Xochitla itself. The stage is set for the ruler's surrender to the powerful, gentle will of the sacred flowers. The clay cup, warm with the floral decoction, is now being carried through the final, hushed corridors toward the sleeping chambers. You follow its slow, measured progress, moving from the functional warmth of the preparation room into the cool, silent architecture dedicated entirely to rest. This entire complex is the ultimate expression of the Aztec solution to high-stakes stress, the deliberate, controlled environment of the Xochitla sleep gardens. This is not just a garden near the house, it is a therapeutic space meticulously designed to integrate plant life and human biology. You enter a series of interconnected, low-walled courts. The walls are smooth, dark stone, chosen not for their grandeur, but for their ability to absorb sound and maintain a steady, cool temperature throughout the night. Even now, the air feels noticeably different, heavy, cool, and overwhelmingly tranquil. This calmness is the result of architectural intent. The layout is designed to slow movement, to discourage speed and noise. The paths meander slightly, forcing a gentle pace, and the surfaces are covered in fine, packed earth that muffles the sound of footsteps. Here, in the Xochitla, you observe the pinnacle of Aztec horticultural science applied to mental health. The design principle is simple yet profound. Therapeutic isolation. The goal was to create a zone where every single sensory input, sight, sound, smell, and even touch, contributed to the reduction of stress hormones and the onset of natural sleep. Look at the plant placement. The plants are not clustered randomly. They are arranged by their aromatic potency and their visual texture. Near the inner sleeping chamber walls, you see low-growing, highly fragrant species, the ones whose scent molecules are most volatile in the cool night air. These include the specialized, non-hallucinogenic tlacopatli and varieties of gentle vanilla orchid. Further out, creating a visual and sonic barrier, are tall, dense hedges and weeping willows. The willow branches, known as a huhuit, hang low, swaying gently in the subtle air currents. This movement is not distracting, it is hypnotic, a soft visual rhythm that matches a slow, relaxed heart rate. This deliberate creation of specialized, fragrant gardens designed to induce rest is the core of this section's focus. The gardens function as a natural form of white noise machine. The sound of water is central here. Unlike the splashing fountains of the public courtyards, the water features in the Xochitla are designed to whisper. Small, narrow channels flow slowly over smooth, polished stones, producing a continuous, low-frequency hush. It is a sound that masks the distant, random noises of the city. A barking dog, a ceremonial drumbeat, replacing them with a soft, steady, and predictable natural murmur. A gentle irony. The ruler of an empire built on the noise of tribute and command had to build an expensive, specialized silence just to catch a few hours of sleep. It speaks volumes about the true cost of power. The light is also controlled. There are no torches allowed near the immediate sleeping area. The only illumination comes from the reflection of the distant stars on the small pools of water, or the soft, ambient glow of the moon filtering through the dense canopy. This dedication to darkness was key. The Aztecs understood, perhaps intuitively, what modern science confirms: the necessity of minimizing light to allow the body to properly produce the hormones required for sleep. The mainstream historical fact is that the Aztecs placed immense value on their botanical gardens, like those at Huastepec. But these specific, private medicinal gardens within the palace represent a powerful, fringe tidbit. They were not for public viewing or celebration. They were highly restricted zones of intense therapeutic practice. The ancient version of a spa retreat, reserved for the extremely stressed. They are a physical manifestation of the belief that environment is medicine. Historians still argue whether the Tlatoani himself dictated the specific layout and contents of these Xochitla gardens, or if the design was entirely delegated to the tlamatinime. Given the ruler's vast responsibilities, it is likely the healers were given free rein, knowing that their professional fate depended on the ruler's ability to wake up rested and ready to rule. The soft texture of the garden also plays a role. The tlamatinime understood that touch could be a potent calming agent. They often recommended that the Tlatoani walk barefoot on certain finely textured mosses or smooth, cool stones near the sleeping area just before lying down. This grounding technique, a form of sensory therapy, helped to shift the mind's focus from abstract anxiety to concrete, peaceful physical sensation. As you stand in this space, you realize that the cure for insomnia here is a form of engineered peace. It is a calculated sensory experience. The air is cool, the light is dim, the sounds are soft and rhythmic, and the smell is overwhelmingly gentle and organic. It is a place designed to convince the stressed brain that it is safe, that the pressure of the empire has been temporarily locked outside the high stone walls. The sleeping chamber itself is simple, built right into the corner of the garden to maximize exposure to the fragrant, cool night air. It lacks the heavy ornamentation of the day rooms. The furniture is minimal, a low mat, perhaps covered with a soft cotton spread, and a low wooden headrest. The walls of the chamber are intentionally permeable, using carefully placed screens or apertures that allow the medicated air of the garden to flow directly in, carrying the aromatic sedative agents. The air is, quite literally, the drug delivery system. The cup of warm floral tea, which you are following, has reached this quiet threshold. The healer carrying it stops and waits, allowing the ruler's personal attendant to receive it. The attendant moves with a grace that is almost spiritual, every action slow and deliberate. The entire atmosphere is one of profound respect for the ritual of rest. You remember the feeling of walking along the noisy, busy causeways of the city in the first section. The contrast between that world and this Xochitla is stark. The Chinampas were productive and loud. These gardens are purely regenerative and silent. The power of the empire required relentless activity, but the survival of the empire required this relentless, orchestrated rest. Another gentle joke. The Tlatoani probably spent more time trying to figure out how to fall asleep than he did figuring out his yearly tribute schedules. The pressure was truly immense. The final element of the Xochitla design is its circularity. The garden provides the ingredients for the tea, and the garden provides the environment for the sleep. It is a closed, loop system of tranquility, a perfect, self-sustaining machine for mental restoration. By designing the very land around the ruler, the tlamatinime were ensuring that nature was actively participating in the management of stress. A beautiful, integrated system that modern wellness resorts are only now starting to replicate. The next step is the descent into the quiet ritual itself, the moment the ruler finally surrenders to the deep, pervasive calm of the fragrant night. The warm, fragrant cup is now inside the simple, shadowed sleeping chamber, resting on a low stone surface. The great ruler, the Tlatoani, has shed the heavy ceremonial robes of his office. He is dressed simply, in fine, soft cotton, ready to attempt the surrender that his powerful position usually makes impossible. You feel the atmosphere condense, becoming charged with the quiet intensity of a mind fighting its own demands. This is the heart of the nighttime rituals. In the Sleepless City, the personal protocols of the Aztec elite as they prepare to use the tranquilizing gardens. The ritual begins not with the tea, but with movement. The attendant guides the ruler, slowly and gently, from the chamber out into the cool air of the adjacent Xochitla garden. This is a deliberate shift from the contained air of the room to the fresh, medicated air of the outdoors. You observe the soft, intentional way he moves, encouraged to focus on the immediate, physical sensations. He walks on the path paved with the smooth, cool river stones, feeling the precise texture beneath his bare feet. This is a physical transition designed to shake off the mental residue of the day's immense political pressures. The mainstream historical fact is that the Aztecs believed strongly in the therapeutic power of sensory experience, utilizing steam baths, temazcal, and specific walks to cleanse and prepare the body for healing. This slow stroll through the flower garden is a personalized, nighttime version of that cleansing, focused specifically on sensory input that induces calm. The scent is strongest now, rising from the night, blooming flowers whose petals unfold as the air temperature drops. You recognize the profound, comforting aroma of the tuberose, its complex sweetness acting as a natural nerve calmer. The ruler is encouraged to take deep, slow breaths, allowing the airborne sedative molecules to flood his senses, bypassing the conscious, stressed, out mind. The attendant speaks in soft, almost inaudible words, not providing instruction, but offering gentle, repetitive phrases that act like a vocal hum, slowing the mental rhythm. There is no conversation, no dialogue, only the deep, continuous flow of the calming ritual. The ruler is being asked to exist entirely in the present moment, to notice the coolness of the air, the smoothness of the stone, the overwhelming softness of the floral scent. This ritual of movement lasts only a short time, perhaps 5 minutes, but it fundamentally shifts the energy of the body. The goal is to move the system from fight or fight to rest and digest. The Tlatoani returns to his chamber, his breathing already deeper and his shoulders visibly lowered. Now comes the botanical phase. He receives the warm, amber cup of the flower decoction. He drinks it slowly, deliberately. The heat of the liquid in his hands is a comforting anchor, and the specific flavor, earthy, slightly bitter, and cut by a hint of vanilla, like sweetness, is familiar and reassuring. It is not just a drink. It is the culmination of the day's efforts to ensure his rest. A quirky or fringe tidbit concerns the specific temperature of the tea. The tlamatinime were careful not to make it too hot, believing that extreme heat stimulated the body, nor too cool, which would be uncomfortable. It was served at a precise, tepid warmth, designed to spread a feeling of gentle internal heat without disrupting the cooling of the body, necessary for sleep. If you think the modern obsession with golden milk before bed is new, think again. The Aztecs were meticulously perfecting their own version 5 centuries ago. After drinking the tea, the ruler lies down on his low mat. The chamber is now utterly dark, with only the scent of the garden penetrating the space. The soft cotton cloth, earlier infused with plumeria essence, is placed near his head, ensuring the calming fragrance remains the dominant sensory input. Historians still argue whether the Aztec elite viewed insomnia as a medical problem or a spiritual affliction caused by a restless spirit. The use of both physical ritual, the walk, the teed, and spiritual items, the sacred, fragrant flowers, suggests a holistic approach where the health of the body and the peace of the spirit were inseparable. The ultimate aim was to quiet the tonali, the soul force or inner fire, which they believed resided in the head and often became overactive due to stress. A light, sleepy joke surfaces. The Tlatoani probably wished he could send his tonali on a temporary vacation to the coast, just to give his brain a break from the constant running of the empire. But instead, he had to rely on the quiet efficiency of the local flora. The attendant remains in the outer court, silent and absolutely still, acting as a human guardrail of quiet. His presence ensures that the ruler's process of descent into sleep is not broken by any external sound or interruption. This deep respect for the resting process is essential. You are witnessing the moment of true surrender. The potent flowers, now active in the ruler's system, begin to slow the heart rate and soften the relentless mental chatter. The combination of the warm decoction from the patahoa, the rhythmic sounds of the garden's water feature, and the constant, gentle perfume of the night bloomers creates a profound sense of protected calm. The anxiety of the day, the worries about tribute and war and crops begin to recede, not banished by force, but gently washed away by the tide of engineered tranquility. The quiet, almost invisible actions are the most powerful. The careful control of light, the exact temperature of the drink, the rhythmic walk. Each element is a small, quiet lever pulling the ruler back toward the fundamental, necessary state of rest. The flower gardens are not just a source of medicine. They are the stage, the setting, and the primary mechanism of the cure. The entire palace grounds, designed for imperial function, are here temporarily repurposed as a sanctuary for sleep. The silence deepens, becoming vast and enveloping. You feel the slow, steady rhythm of the night taking hold. The Tlatoani has gone from the constant, high alert state of supreme command to the deep, undefended vulnerability of sleep, all thanks to the quiet power of earth, water, and bloom. The stage is set now for a closer look at the actual science. The potent combination of scents and textures that made this botanical cure so effective. The fragrant environment is doing its gentle, necessary work. The Tlatoani lies still, suspended in the quiet darkness. The warm, floral tea is settled in his stomach, and the rhythmic sound of the circulating water in the Xochitla is the only consistent sound. Now, the quiet scientific precision of the tlamatinime comes into full effect. This section dives deep into the fragrant science and the flower protocol, exploring the specific, calculated combination of scents and plant textures used to ensure this deeply restorative sleep. You are breathing the most expensive, most precisely engineered air in the Aztec Empire. The entire environment is a botanical experiment where every scent molecule is a measured dose of calm. The tlamatinime were masters of plant synergy, understanding that different compounds worked better when combined, an ancient form of polypharmacy. They designed the garden beds to release a tiered, sequential fragrance profile. First, you have the grounding scents, which were dominant earlier in the evening during the ritual walk. These scents were heavy, earthy, and familiar, usually coming from barks and resins like mild cedar and copal, which helped anchor the stressed mind to the physical world. These scents acted as a signal of safety and stability. Second, and now most dominant, are the hypnotic scents, which do the heavy lifting of inducing sleep. This is where the specific flower protocol shines. The scent of the Xochitla, the ear flower, with its warm, vanilla-like aroma, is pervasive. Vanilla scents, the tlamatinime knew, are universally recognized as comforting and relaxing, mimicking the scent profile of certain nourishing foods and warmth. This is combined with the gentle, profound sweetness of the specific water lily varieties, known to contain mild alkaloid compounds that, when inhaled in the cool night air, act as natural, mild sedatives. The mainstream historical fact here is that the Aztecs understood the psychoactive properties of various plants and used them with great care for medicinal and ritual purposes. The tlamatinime were exceptionally skilled at dosing, a knowledge base that was destroyed by subsequent conquests. The quirky or fringe tidbit is that the most prized, sleep-inducing water lily, often called acapetlahoe in some regional dialects, was grown in specialized, clay-lined pots within the chinampas and never allowed to touch the main lake water, ensuring the purity and consistent potency of its alkaloid content for the royal remedies. The sleep being induced is not a stupor, but a gentle descent. The fragrances are working to slow the ruler's rapid brain waves. Think of the contrast. The ruler's mind usually ran at a high speed, alert frequency, managing complex logistics. The floral compounds are gently pushing those frequencies down, slowing the electrical activity of the brain, creating the conditions for theta and delta wave sleep. A gentle joke for the tired ruler. He was likely the only man in the empire who was actually paid to fall asleep, even if he had to hire an entire botanical staff and build a specialized garden to succeed. The tactile science of the protocol is also crucial, remembering the walk on the smooth, cool stones. This focus on texture extends to the chamber itself. The sleeping mat is often lined with specially dried, slightly rough, textured grasses, providing a subtle, constant, non-irritating sensation against the skin. This constant, low-level tactile input gives the mind something simple and physical to focus on, preventing it from spiraling into abstract worry. It is a brilliant, low-tech version of a weighted blanket, using texture instead of weight to create a feeling of being safely contained. Historians still argue whether the tlamatinime understood the concept of a placebo effect. Did they truly believe the simple touch of a certain leaf or the sound of specific water flow was as potent as the complex chemical compounds in the flower tea. While they certainly understood chemical action, their holistic view of medicine suggests that the full sensory experience, the beautiful scent, the soft texture, the gentle sound, was considered an essential part of the drug delivery system, activating the mind's own power to heal and rest. The final layer of the fragrant science involves the stabilizing scents. These are mild, woodsy aromas from the ahuhuit cypress trees planted around the perimeter. These scents are constant, subtle, and non-floral, acting as a background hum that grounds the more intoxicating floral perfumes. They prevent the scents from becoming overpowering or cloying, ensuring the air remains fresh and breathable. The scent is a language the body understands, speaking directly to the autonomic nervous system. The floral compounds are signaling to the body, it is safe, the threat is gone, you can relax the muscles and slow the heart. You can feel the effects even now. The sensation of your own muscles softening as you breathe in the imagined atmosphere of the ancient Xochitla. The flower protocol was a continuous treatment, not a one-time fix. The Tlatoani would undergo this sequence of movement, tea, and fragrant immersion every night. He struggled to sleep. The constant exposure to the specific botanical profile created a powerful association. This scent equals peace. Over time, just entering the garden, or even catching a whiff of a plumeria blossom, would cue the body to begin its process of slowing down and preparing for rest. The air remains cool, clean, and profoundly tranquil. The only thing moving is the slow, almost invisible current of air carrying the scent from the flower beds into the chamber. The great ruler is now in a deep sleep, the result of a meticulously managed combination of botanical chemistry, environmental engineering, and calming ritual. This gentle, flower-induced oblivion ensured that the man who commanded an empire was, for a few hours, nothing more than a resting body, tended to by the quiet, powerful wisdom of the gardens. The next section will look at the long-term impact of this incredible botanical legacy.